Show them how you get up in your bag. Show them that swag. What you see is what you get. When I look in the mirror, I'm looking like a man. Like we playing tag bad, I'm the top pick. Show them what you're working with. Break the circuit, be a hit. Go ahead and make them sit. If you gotta hate it, then your purpose is equipped. Tell them catch you later, cause you serving up some grits. Meaning hot with the drip when I drop in the mix. The proof is in the pudding. Show them how you do it. They do it like they shouldn't. You don't need to brag, cause your competition couldn't. You don't need to boast, cause the proof is in the pudding. Show them that swag. Show them that swag. Show them that swag. Show them that swag. Show them what you got. Show them how you get up in your bag. Show them that swag.
Yeah, I think we can get started here in just a second. Thank you guys so much for coming. Just a few housekeeping things. In case you guys don't know me, if you watch webinars, you might by now. My name is Stevie. I'm part of the studio success team here at PhotoDay. And today I have Jerry Hughes with me from Jerry Hughes Photography. So Jerry is cheer and sports photographer, right? You specialize in those things.
We do.
Action style shots, event shots, as well as team and individual. I would consider you an absolute expert in the industry. So we're lucky to have you on today. And you're going to be sharing some tips and tricks specifically about growing your social media audience, which you are especially gifted with. So this is going to be awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Excited. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. See, we're starting to get some people in here. See my girl Tammy from Mobile, Alabama's in the house, which is nice. And Hannah especially is here. I love Hannah. I haven't seen Hannah in a long time. So it should be fun. But yeah, social media. I mean, that's I tell people, people are curious, because if they've been online and seen my social media, here's this chubby old fat dude, boring as can be in my terms of my demographic. I mean, I am serious. That doesn't get any more boring than me, in terms of my age and all that stuff in terms of demographic. But wow, he's got 200,000 plus followers on his Instagram, and I
doing something right.
I walk in like, yeah, I got that, and I honestly, it's something that I don't really even know exactly how it happened. It's photography is a second career for me. I have not been doing this my entire life. Literally about 12 years ago, I bought my first DSLR, and my kids were in cheerleading, and I learned how to take pictures basically because they were at these cheer events and I needed something to do to keep myself occupied. And I was just infatuated with the camera, but it's like, how do I become relevant? I loved it. I knew this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. How do I make that happen? So I'm not doing that $150 portrait session of some family that doesn't want to be there. And, just the usual stuff, the terrible wedding where people want this beautiful, beautiful picture. And like, girl, you don't have that dress. You're not in that venue. I can't make it look like the magazine, It's like, so I knew sports was going to be my jam, and as it really turned out, it was going to be cheer and dance. But how do I make this a career that people, want to actually use me and see? So, we started doing cheer photography, and, cheer at the time, and still was really heavily involved with social media. We had what we call these celebrities, these kids that would be popular, these massive followings and stuff. And so I'm like, how do I grow my business? So what I did is I did an analysis of who was popular in cheerleading, and really studied what they were doing on social media. At the time, Instagram was pretty much the only game in town. And then I also would take a look at some of the dancers and stuff, because we were doing a lot of dance photography at the time. And same thing, looking at the dancers that were really popular. What are they doing? And then I spun it into taking a deeper dive into what photographers are really making it with these elite, high-profile athletes. And that's kind of how I developed my social media strategy, was looking at what was working for other people.
Right.
And, so I was looking at the Dance Mom Kids. That was really popular back at that time. The TV show Dance Moms.
Yes.
What were they doing? What was Gabby Butler doing? Who was and still is one of the most
they've all blown up.
Popular people. And and I would analyze what they were doing, what the photographers that were doing, that were shooting them, what the TV shows that were doing, that were promoting them, and that's how I kind of started molding my social media strategy. And we started taking some pictures of our of kids at our cheer gym, and very quickly, we became a local celebrity, and literally just in our neighborhood. We're living in Seattle at the time, and we were a celebrity within our own little cheer gym, and then it expanded into kind of the Seattle thing. A couple of our posts got picked up by some cheer companies that reposted them on their social media. One in particular was one of my son. This is a great story. There's a company called Infinity. It's a great big shoe manufacturer that focuses on female athletes. And they picked up a photo that I had posted and posted it on their Twitter account, and it blew up. I picked up thousands of followers, right away. But here was the scary thing. I mean, I barely owned a camera for less than 2 years. I didn't know what I was doing.
You're like,
this was a composite photo I did, and it's amazing. It's a great. I wish I would have included it inside, but in the slide deck. But it was a great photo. But it was a composite that I did of my son. We took it in my basement studio, and then I did plates from the Glass Museum in Tacoma. I spent 12 hours on this thing in building it. Now, it's something I could literally do in 15 minutes today. But at the time, I wasn't a Photoshop expert. I wasn't a photography expert. And we did this thing, and I posted it. It got reposted, and we blew up. But here was the scary thing, is I got a phone call from the company that reposted it, wanting to know what my day rate was, because they wanted to hire me to come do work for them. Girl, I froze.
You're like,
no idea even what the
come up with it on the spot.
Day rate means. I'm freaking out. I'm literally, I got a tear in my eye when I get this phone call. Oh my gosh, everything I want in the next few years has just happened right at this moment. I screwed it up so bad. When I got back to them, it takes me 8 hours to make this picture. They want all this. So I just completely flubbed it. It was so unprofessional. But what it did is it showed me is I had the ability to do what I love and turn it into something that was, a career that would provide for my family. But it was social media that gave me that opportunity and allowed me to be able to say, hey, this is something, so it's powerful, and here we are. We're photographers. Every person here in this seminar has access to an unbelievable amount of content, because that's the key. Content is everything. These big companies, small companies, influencers, everyone is begging for content, and we have thousands and thousands of images right at our fingertips. Is what do we do with them? And that's, I guess, what we're going to be here. So like I say, I don't know exactly how we got here, but over the years, I've kind of formulated a strategy. I say it's kind of a balance between art and science, of how we make this work. There are some things that I do that are very intentional, but part of it is just, we know kind of what works, and, trying and fitting the pieces to make it blow up. So,
very cool. Well, let me flip to the next slide. It is some of your images so everybody can see some of your work. Beautiful stuff here.
So this is mostly high school stuff. Yeah. And this is kind of a real live tutorial of how I use social media to enter a new market. So my primary source of income is through all-star cheerleading, what they call competitive cheerleading. So these are the private gyms that do the ESPN routines that you see at 2:00 in the morning, and that's what we really built our business and our reputation on. 2 years ago, we moved to Dallas, primarily to be more centralized towards our all-star clients. Most of our work was in Texas, Florida, and the Northeast. We were living at Vegas when we moved, and I just needed to be closer to my clients because we're always on airplanes. But the other second part of our strategy of moving to Dallas was to tap into the local sports and photography market, and so our first real attempt to move into this market was into high school cheerleading, high school media days in the Dallas and the Texas market. And where we came from, media days for high school cheer weren't amazing. We did them, but it wasn't amazing.
Right.
In Texas, girl, it is God, guns,
Everything.
football, and cheer. I mean, that's it. That's it. Those are the four. That's it. And to be fourth place in that list in Texas is still a good thing. High school cheer is huge. We're dealing with a lot of schools that are 5,000, 6,000 students, where they have cheer squads approaching 100, athletes. It's a huge, huge market and a huge opportunity. But I walk in and I had a little bit of knowledge from my social media, but I had no high school contacts whatsoever. And in less than 2 years, we've leveraged what we've done on social media to this year, we're going to shoot 60 plus cheer squads in July and August. And then it is spinning into us getting into other sports like volleyball, basketball, football, drill team, and it's because of our social media presence that's really allowed us to do that. And so that's what these slides are. Yeah.
That's how you're picking up most of your business, is just through people seeing your work on social media.
Social media. Yeah. So,
Very cool.
Yeah. So what's our next slide?
I know we're kind of behind on slides. So
all right, that's fine. Could we go to that first video?
Let's do it.
Possible?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you want to talk about it first? Because I think when I hit it, it might.
Let's see why social media growth matters here. So let's do the slide thing so that we can follow what we're supposed to do. So why it matters. So
Jerry doesn't want to do slides.
I hate slides, but I appreciate we have them because it is keeping us on track, because I will just ramble and ramble and ramble. But why does social media growth matter? Okay, it gives us proof. It's trust. It shows that when I came into this Dallas market, that I was credible. At the time we had 150,000 followers, very visible on all-star cheerleading, a little bit of college cheerleading. I've worked with the Navarro cheer team from the Netflix show Cheer, so it gives me that instant amount of credibility when I walk in the door. I don't have to explain that, hey, I can do this. I know how to take these pictures, and so the visibility did lead to opportunities. And it's really, it is about value. It's not about vanity. It looks like, I'm out there sometime, oh, look at me, I can shoot this. I shoot. Everything I'm doing is intentional. It's not about showing what Jerry can shoot and do. It's like, I have a purpose in mind with every post that I do. So with that, now that we've hit the slide thing, like
video time.
Let's go a little video time, and let's walk to this video that I just posted about 3 weeks ago. All right. So there is a video, of a fairly good sized, well-known cheer squad in a suburb of Dallas, up in Flower Mound, Marcus High School, up in Flower Mound. Okay. So I took that video in the middle of May. So I had just come off my all-star season. I am tired. I don't want to go out and do anything. I have nothing that I really have to do. But in Texas, they have spring football. Football is religion out here. So they have their spring football game, and it's like legit. They come out and referees, the whole deal. The cheerleaders come to the sidelines. They choose their cheer squad in the spring, and so they've actually been practiced. They actually have cheerleading classes at the schools. I mean, all these sports have their own class during the daytime. I mean, this is how big time it is.
That's amazing.
So Marcus is a good client of mine, and I'm like, well, I can sit here and watch reruns on Hulu and do nothing, or I can get my butt off the couch and grab my camera and run out to their spring game and create a little content. And so I didn't have to be there. I chose to go out, and for the sole purpose of, this is a good client and let's create a little content. Now, over and above being a really well-known cheer program, the redhead girl on the opening part of the video and towards the end, her name's Harper Zilmer. So if you have a 12-year-old girl at home, they know who Harper is. She is one of the lead people on the LLL podcast, which is like huge. She's going to be in a Nickelodeon movie this summer. She's on tour. You know, I had no idea who this girl was, and I'm pretty much, my life lives on social media. A year ago when I met her, but you know, walked in and like, oh, okay, now I get it. And so I go out to the game, and I take some pictures, I take some video, I come back, I stitch it together. You know, I have maybe 2 hours of my life invested into this. One, my customer is just appreciative that I'm there. But I take this video, and it's in a time of the year where I'm not getting a lot of original content. I put it together, and I'm really take advantage of the fact that Harper's there, because I know I'm going to get a lot of viewership just from there. I'm using the Sony A9 III with the global shutter, 2 amazing lenses. They're 70 to 200 G Master 2 and a 300 2.8. And I'm taking video that typically I couldn't do with my other cameras before I got this camera. So it's got a different look to it. And so we put this together. I know that it's going to get a lot of initial looks, you know, and I tag Sony heavily in this video. So we put it online, and yeah, I knew it was going to get 1 million views, but it ended up getting about 5 million views, you know, because of the school, because of the type of video that we were doing, because of Harper. And it did what I hoped it to do. It was to blow up and go semi-viral. And with that, this is the time of the year that we are booking these high school cheer teams and for their media days. So I have this video that's going viral throughout the country as well as in Texas. It's making my phone ring with all these new high school cheer teams. But on the second part of my life, as I'm starting to, you know, get a little older, is wanting to get more into education, photography education. It piqued Sony's interest. So I get a message on Instagram, and we've collaborated on a couple projects before. And they like, hey, we love this. It looks new. It's unique. It's featuring our new camera. It's just different than what everyone else sees. Can we use it for a post? And of course, you know, so I sign all the releases and stuff. They posted last week, you know, and it just pushes more and more, picks me up, you know, 1,000 new photographer followers. And so it's intentional. What I was doing was a plan. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. I don't always get all these views. You know, this one fell right into place. But because I went out and did it and put some effort into it, it got me new clients for my photography business. It helped me pick up new people for my upcoming workshop. You know, it puts me on the radar with a big photography company. It gives me opportunities when new products come out to test things. But it was me getting off the couch and doing something that I wasn't getting paid for, that has paid me tens of thousands of dollars because I went out and did it. You know, rather than waiting to get paid, you know, put my foot down. Oh, I don't do anything for less than $1,500. Oh, you have to pay me first. You know, it's the stuff I see on some of the posts within these photographers group. It's like, oh my gosh, please just, why don't you just be your clients, you know, with that attitude. But yeah, so this video really embodies, you know, and what it really comes down to, and this is going to sound a little shallow, but why that video worked. It was pretty talented people doing interesting things is what it really came down to. Pretty talented people doing interesting things. And as a result,
that's what goes viral.
That's what goes viral. So yeah. Cool.
Very cool. Well, we have questions, and I'll ask so that they can get answered. They're pretty relevant. So, by the way, guys, you can ask questions as we go. We'll try to get to some throughout, and then we'll cover whatever we don't get to at the end too. But number one is, do you get like releases from the people that you're posting?
Okay.
How does that work?
So no, I don't.
Sorry for jumping the gun. Okay.
No. Was that the full question? I'm sorry. Is that just the releases?
Basically, yeah. What's your process for, do you do a blanket waiver? Okay.
I don't. So typically, like if I'm shooting out at a public event like the video I just posted, That's at a public event. There's no expectation of privacy. When we're shooting in cheer gyms, the gym owners typically will get a blanket waiver from the athletes, to be able to use photos and images and stuff, at the beginning of the season. When I'm at cheer competition, same deal. They're signing a waiver to be able to participate in that competition, the photography.
Right.
Now, all that said, I've posted, probably 6,000 posts, over my time. And waiver or no waiver, if a parent were to reach out to me and say, I'm not comfortable with my child being posted, I would take it down in a heartbeat. Not even, whether I have the right or not, it is down as fast as I can get to my Instagram. And that's only happened 3 times, since I've been doing this. And so even though I have the right to be able to post every picture that I do post, if somebody's not comfortable with their minor child being posted publicly, it goes down instantly. And I'm in some of these sports groups and stuff where it's like, no, I'm not going to take that down. I have the right to be there. I have a media pass, blah, 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 blah. It's like, here again, like, give me your business, dude, please, thank you. So no, I don't go through the steps of getting a waiver unless we're using it for commercial purposes. If I'm going to start then getting paid by a brand or something to use it, then I'm going to get a waiver, because that's to a different level. It's not so much a media post, it's a commercial post, and then I will get a waiver.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the organizations you work with, or the competition, cheer and stuff like that, they're used to a lot of content being captured throughout the competitions and stuff like that.
These moms will kill each other. Getting a waiver is the least of my problems. It's like beating off the parents to, that want their kids to be posted. That's more in line. That's the issue. Is like, especially when we were transitioning from a regional company to a national company, we built our business on all these local kids, and we got to a point where it was big enough. Like, I'm sorry, I can't post your kid once a month anymore. We've moved on, and we're doing, and it's gotten to be more and more selective to what we do and who we post as the brand grows bigger and bigger.
Right. Okay, and one more question. What program are you using for your video edits for these reels?
Oh, goodness. So I use primarily Adobe Premiere Pro as well as CapCut. So CapCut literally can do everything that you need it to do. The free version, you can do everything you need it to do. If you were to upgrade to the Pro version, it's worth it just for the little extra ability for transitions. I learned how to do video editing on Adobe Premiere, but literally any non-linear editing program, and that's some fancy term for just a basic video edit. Whether it's iMovie, Premiere, which most of the people will have as part of their Creative Cloud subscription, even in Photoshop. The first video I ever edited 12 years ago, I did it in Photoshop. They have a motion space within Photoshop where you can do basic video editing right within Photoshop. So it's not so much the program. It's more about how do you edit. This kind of spins into, if you look at all the videos that we do that do well, is they capture the people not in the first 2 seconds, in the first half a second. There's something happening. So, because you got to think, you're scrolling, you're just seeing the same thing over and over and over again. You have literally a third to a half of the second to catch a person's attention.
That's very true.
So it's not so much the program. There's a lot of programs out there. It's having a strategy of having a hook. I need a hook to get those people in. My editing needs to be organic. Do you want to? Let's cue up another video. Can we talk? Do you have another question before we go to another video? I'm sorry.
I don't. I think after we do the video, we can go to this slide, because I feel like we're kind of leading into it with keeping things consistent in the look. You want to do this first or a video first?
No, let's go ahead and talk about this slide, and then we can show a couple of videos of how we constructed them, because I think that's a question I get. What program? It's not a program that's doing it. It's what's right here. The program part of it's really, really simple. It's accessible. It's free. It's more about how do we construct these posts to make them visible and then to beat the algorithms. That's what we're really doing, is I'm editing to an algorithm, not editing to necessarily flashy transitions and so forth.
Right.
So, so consistency is a key. Yeah. I guess without, I say everything's intentional, but the style just kind of shows itself. It's pretty quick to be able to see if it's one of my videos, whether it's, Jason from Rocktown or Brad, Brad Deal, you see their videos, and in an instant, it's going to be one of their videos. And that helps with retention. People want to see it, tone, color, subject matter, something, because I use typically relevant to my audience, primarily we shoot female athletes. We're trying to expand that in Dallas, but we primarily shoot female athletes. Tone and color, that just kind of comes with my photography style, but it's not really an intentional act for when I'm picking and choosing, how I edit a video. But, the style, we have two basic styles that we do, whether it is the full-on video like you just saw of Marcus or behind the scenes video, we do kind of keep some consistency with that. And then, that aligning the social content with the client that you want to attract, that's everything. That's where it's intentional. What we are doing, every post has a reason and a goal behind it, whether it's subtle or very overt, but we have an intentional goal behind that. So let's show a couple videos and then talk about how we put that together. So what one's up next? Number two.
Number two. Let me make a small so that we're not.
All right.
All right. Ready? Rolling number two.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. So that is just the behind the scenes of a photo shoot that we did. So Blanco High School, that's just outside of Austin. And, our smoke shoot is, everybody wants the smoke shoot. When I get a phone call, can you come do the smoke? Can you come do the smoke? Just between us photographers, I'm really tired of doing the smoke pictures. I'm so tired.
Hey.
Like, come on, let's move on. But my bank account's not tired of it. So it's what people want, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And so that is just a simple little 6 second video that we did of the behind the scenes of that shoot. But if you really, what beats the algorithm is something that's organic, so I don't use a template to just drop things one place right into another. It's like it engages people right away because they're seeing the back of photographers, seeing all these kids holding palms.
They want to see the results.
Then it moves right into it, and then boom, flash, and then you see this final picture, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that got several million views because it was engaging. It was organic. It was fun. It was a little bit different than, what you normally see. And, so that's what it's about. It's about, and being engaging, getting that hook, doing something that they just don't see so they just scroll past. So many video guys, especially in our cheer industry, they have 3 different templates, and they just drop in the same videos into the same templates, and their client gets to see their logo with a flash and a spin and all the zigging and zagging, and Instagram and TikTok instantly recognizes it as non-organic content, that it's an ad. And one, it's not going to get pushed out to a lot of people. And when it does, they've already seen that same video 100 times. Yeah, it might be a different corporation, event producer, Jim, with a different logo, and it might be different videos in it, but it's the exact same video over and over and over again. What makes engaging content is something that's organic, that it's edited to where it's just what you saw behind it. It doesn't have to be long. If you notice, I don't have a ton of fancy transitions in any of my videos. It is just behind the scenes, boom, switch to the final image, done. Very simple, very clean,
very organic.
Let's do the one that is the one with the red smoke and the girl jumping.
You ready?
I don't know that out of order. Yeah, let's do that one.
That's 3 in order.
I was down, but now I'm up. Yeah.
Okay, so that totally unexpected. I say everything's intentional. I actually just threw that together. I knew I needed to get something posted from that event.
Mm-hmm.
That video has over 29 million views on Instagram. 29
Unreal.
million. Yeah, by far my most viewed video. Okay. Here again, quick, engaging. Okay. Now the next little part, the little secret, the little secret sauce, what made that happen and what really makes a lot of our videos, go is controversy and conversation. So in that particular video, when I posted that, it got a really good push right away. And we hit 40, 50,000 views, within by the end of the day. But what had happened is this girl's family was so proud of the fact that she was on this video and out there, and they started commenting on it. Like, that's my niece, that's my cousin, that's my, and so what happened is the audience started picking up on that. And then it got to be, and it was very friendly banter, it was just very friendly. And it's like, oh, that's my aunt's step cousin's niece, on and on and on. And it got all this commenting going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And next thing we know, it's being picked up by different media people that are reposting it on their stories.
Wow.
Queen Latifah commented on it. Who else commented on that one? Keller Ripa commented. And as soon as you can get a major celebrity to even like or comment, it pushes it out. It's like, getting Sony to chime in on something, or even on a lower level. I think on that one, atmosphere aerosol, the people that we use to make the smoke, they reposted in a comment. So that pushes it out to other photographers. So the collaboration piece, the comment piece, is so important. So that's why we're always tagging people. We're inviting people to collaborate on it, because we never know, what little piece is going to spin to another person who's going to comment, and just keeps pushing out the content to different people.
Very cool. That is amazing.
That's how a video gets 29 million views. I'm like, it's like, come on, get to 30. Come on, I'm just being get to 30.
You're like, who else is going to comment? Anybody?
Yeah. Okay, so my brand, my voice, my style. I think we kind of talked about that. Is I'm really I know what my audience is. I know that I'm working with primarily female athletes. Content strategy. Okay, so you do want to show your best work, so when I'm putting something out on social media right now, it is my portfolio. So right now I have a horrible website. It's actually a summer project. My website's terrible. I mean, I literally turned it into a black and white, almost like the old school generic version of milk. That is my website. And it was intentional, because I knew it was just, I'm busy. I don't have time to put it together. And I literally it is boring, basic. But what I do have on my website is a link to my Instagram. So when you do go to the visual part of it, it's just a gallery that highlights the last 12 posts of.
Cool.
So in effect, my social media is my portfolio. So if I'm looking for a new client or trying to reference something to an existing client, I'm usually showing links to my social media. Even in preparation for this webinar, I sent you guys links to 5 videos, that I wanted to highlight, rather than on my website. My website is really just a channel for people to get in touch with me. My portfolio really resides on my social media. The last 2 weeks, it looks a little cluttered. It looks worse than, and then this is your fault, Stevie. I know. I don't normally put ads on my Instagram, but in preparation for this webinar, for a workshop that I have coming up, I have a really big event producing client who used some videos that I did and put some graphics on them that I would never put on, but they invited to collaborate with me, and they're a great client. And I was, honored and happy to collaborate with them instantly, but they didn't get great views, so right now my social media is really the first 5 or 6 posts of my social media is looking like a strip mall billboard, which is what I really want to avoid doing, you know. And as we move on a week or two beyond this, I will archive those posts and make it look pretty, because it really is my portfolio, you know. The behind the scenes, as we showed already on a couple of these videos, the behind the scenes, they do by far the best of anything that we do. And that's true whether it's, you know, me, you know, J Boy Wright, Brad Deal, you know, Jason Rocktown. The behind the scenes engage people, whether they're photographers, non-photographers. People want to see that organic contact. They want to be able to see how it's done, but they also want to see the result, you know. So show the behind. That would probably be the best suggestion I have for the photographers that are here. You know, how can they create content? Do some behind the scenes, you know.
I have a question on that one.
Yeah, sure.
Who videos the behind the scenes?
Oh my goodness. A mom, kid,
okay,
an assistant. I just bought a little magnetic holder for my my cell phone that I can just have it propped up and take it. It really isn't, it doesn't have to be anybody amazing, you know. It's all mostly iPhone content, you know. So just somebody doing iPhone content that's available. You know, the biggest little key to, I'm gonna try to keep this from being super technical, but if you're having someone stand behind you to take pictures of you behind the scenes, make sure that they're putting their finger on the subject so that the focus stays on that subject. I have some amazing social media videos that never saw the light of day because the focus is on the back of my head, and nobody wants to see the back of my head. They want to see the cheerleader jumping, you know. So that's just a small technical trip, you know, trick, you know. So whomever's taking that video behind, remind them to please put your finger, the focus finger, on the subject, rather than, otherwise it'll just go to the back of your head or your camera. And a lot of times it'll go like to the screen of the back of my camera, and I don't see the person back there. And I've got a lot of videos that I've wanted to post that I can't because it doesn't work. Yeah, and see what else we got here. Micro tutorials. Yeah, people just want to see how it's done. You know, it really, you know, and the behind the scenes is the best way of doing that. Now I'll get follow-up questions on my direct messages about lighting, this and that, and I do my best to answer those. You know, I'm probably answering a dozen in direct messages a day, and you know, I've always been the philosophy, I love what I do, and I like to share what I do with other people. There's not a lot of major secrets to what I do. And then how do I plan my content calendar without burnout? You know what? You know, burnout's real. So until you get to a place where you have a couple 100,000 people, you know, I'm going to tell you, you just got to suck it up and do it. You need to be posting, you know, at least 3 to 5 times a week to get that audience. We're fortunately at a space, place in our time right now where I can get away with not posting for a little while. And it's not a good strategy. But we were really busy this spring, and we were doing a lot of competitions without, you know, that didn't have necessarily a lot of amazing teams. So my opportunity for fresh, new, great content wasn't there. I was traveling, I was flying, and my posting went really down this spring. But it's easy when you have the following that we do to get it going, generate back pretty quickly. But until you have that following, it's got to be consistent. You've got to be consistent. So,
to build the following.
So I don't really plan. Yeah, so I don't really plan a calendar per se, but like I knew, like with the video that the first one we saw of that high school team, it's like, oh, I need to get some content. It's marketing time. This is when you generate your business for, you know, high school as well as your all-star clients. You know, get that social media going again.
So do you schedule these posts ever, or are you just posting them up when you're ready?
I just post them when I'm ready. Now, I do recommend, though, that, you know, if you really want or serious about growing an audience, you need to at least 3 times, if not more, a week to be posting. And it should be a common, and the reels take a little more time to edit, but, you know, carousels, which is basically a collection of images, can do well as, you know, it's better to post consistently. Make sure you have good stuff, but you want to post consistently because you just never know what's going to take off. You know, like that one video that got, you know, almost 30 million views. I was really anticipating 100,000 with that. I wasn't anticipating 30 million. So you just never know what will resonate with people.
Do you ever, like, when you're posting, do you ever post kind of the same content just in different formats, like in a carousel, then in videos, like to put multiple out there, or you focus on like one post?
I should. It's a really good, there's a lot of people that do that strategy where they will take one concept or one behind the scenes and make 3 or 4 posts out of it. I got to be honest with you, I don't right now. I literally am just throwing up something behind the scenes and moving on.
Totally. So it's just you that does your social media. You don't hire anybody at this moment. Okay.
Yeah, that leads into a little suggestion. You cannot hire some 16-year-old kid to do your social media. It will not work. They don't know who you are, what your brand is, what your goals are. This is not about somebody that knows how to run CapCut and make edits. This is about getting your message out, and you are the only one that knows how to do that. Period. End of story. I see that. People post an ad. Hey, is there some 15-year-old kid that I can pay $12 an hour to do my social media? Yeah. Save the $12 an hour because you're going to get 12 views. You're better off doing it yourself. And this is not hard. I literally CapCut. I mean, you can learn how to run CapCut, in an hour. It is not hard. Nothing I've showed is more than 2, 3. I take that. The behind the scenes videos. There's nothing hard about generating that content. The first video I saw, that takes a little bit of skill, to take the footage, to be able to know how to edit. It's not hard editing, but knowing when to cut, when to choose this angle, that angle, so that first video I saw, that does take a little time, it's not hard. I mean, it's not like years and years, but it takes a little more, trial and error to get proficient at that, both taking the footage as well as editing it. But the behind the scenes footage, there's no talent involved in that.
Right. And the CapCut and stuff like that, it's built to create those reels, so it kind of helps 100%, you with the format.
Yeah, but keep it simple. Don't get don't get caught up in all the fancy transitions and filters and stuff, because as soon as you do that, the Instagram and TikTok is going to notice it, and they're not going to put your content out. Organic. Simple, clean cuts, usually nothing more than 1 second per cut. Okay.
I think that we can lead into this. I mean, we're kind of already in there. Why is video essential in 2025? And I have a ton of questions. I'm going to get to them. I think I'll bring them up as I can, but we'll get to them at the end. So don't worry if you've asked and I haven't asked it yet.
Okay. So real and content. So we've talked about a lot of this. So algorithm, that is a fancy word for nobody knows. That's where I say it's part art, part science. Okay. If I could bottle up and tell you guys exactly step by step what you needed to do to beat Instagram's algorithm or TikTok's algorithm, I'd be a rich man. Nobody knows, that's the reality, so I get a feel for it. I really just kind of get a feel. I know that video works better than still images. I know that something that has a movement, not like you'll see a lot of jump shots. I'm not waiting for the boom, 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 boom. We're starting the jump right away. That's like the first cut is seeing that jump happening as it's starting to go up. We want instant movement right away. It just wants, the algorithm is going, when you post a video, it's going to send it out to your immediate followers, and they're going to see, is this engaging or not? Okay. Right. And so you hook them. Okay, great. It's going to then spit it out to 10 of their followers and 10 of their followers and 10 of their followers. It's about engagement, because the reality is Instagram, TikTok, they want to sell ad space, and to sell ad space, they got to keep you on. They got to keep you on their platform. And so it's about getting that initial engagement. Video by far, since the reels have been introduced, the video is everything. It's life. If you I could throw the best picture. I got 5 or 6 of my favorite pictures I've ever taken in the world. And any one of those 5 pictures, if I put up just by themselves, I'd be lucky to get 100 likes,
Right.
Very, very, where I could just put, random video, some girl doing a jump shot and hit 30 million views because it's interesting, so that hook is everything. Short clips. If you look at my videos, let's go to, this is a good opportunity. The one where the girl, I think it's number, the
maybe 5
in the blue. It might be 5. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it.
When we standing on business, I'm a big stepper. Underground methods, top-notch horse, get the most than the lizard. Straight terror, but I got your errors. Pushing culture, baby, got that power that you can measure. Trendsetter.
All right, so this got several million views. I think like 4.5 on Instagram, like 6 on TikTok, and it actually did well on YouTube Shorts too. But if you really look at that video, breaking that down, there was no clip, even the shooting sequence or the jump sequence, that was over 2 seconds long. It's constantly moving, constantly cutting to a new situation. You know, it's just boom, boom, boom. People, you know, have short attention spans and they just want to see it happen fast. They don't, here again, real simple formula, you know, pretty talented people doing interesting things, you know, and just doing it quick. And I don't fit the pretty talented portion of that. I have to rely on the people I'm shooting. So, but I hope what I'm doing is interesting. So I at least have one of the three.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
So are you looking at your past content and looking at what gets the most engagement to adjust what you do in the future? Like, do you use what you post, you know, to make you better as you go? That's a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always analyzing, you know, I'm very, very analytical to what's working and what's not working, you know, in terms of getting. So most of the time I'm out there, you know, I said I'm doing everything intentional. So, you know, like right now we're posting a lot of high school work because that's the time of the year that we're really building up, you know, that kind of business. That's going to shift your, you know, very quickly in the next couple of weeks as we start booking our all-star gyms and our competitions, you know, so we'll do a different form, you know. We're also trying to build into some different markets, volleyball, softball, you know, things like that. So you're starting to see a little bit of that, those start infiltrating our social media. You know, we want to post things that people can see, you know, that people, you know, so the first thing is it's got to be engaging to get it out to people. And, you know, so yeah, looking at past performance helps. That's kind of the science part of it, you know, that helps me with the art feel of what the next thing's going to look like, you know.
All right, let's talk about captions, hashtags, and engagement.
Okay. I think I want to, captions aren't really as crucial, especially on TikTok. I mean, literally the caption has nothing to do with it. I mean,
it's an afterthought.
Happy birthday, you know, and on Instagram, a little bit here and there. Hashtags, if you listen to the more popular people right now, they'll say that they're not as crucial, but I still find them to be very, very helpful. You know, so I'm typically trying to serve two audiences right now. I'm trying to serve my photography clients and then photographers as we want to expand into more education. You know, so when I'm doing my hashtags, you know, typically it's going to be cheerleaders, cheerleading, high school cheer, action photography. Now, this is how I got Sony to hook on, you know, hashtag Sony Alpha, hashtag Sony A9 III. You know, if I'm featuring lighting, I might, you know, tag Goddix, you know, if I'm trying to, you know, doing a smoke shoot, we're going to tag atmosphere aerosol, you know. So I really think hashtags are important because there's a lot of people, your core audience especially, that will follow a certain hashtags, and so that's driving the post into their inbox. Is you know, especially on the cheer and the photography side, I know, you know, by that Sony tag, that drives me to a lot of people. Turn action photography drives me to a lot of people, you know. So certain hashtags that I use over and over again, and some of them I just put in there as more of a courtesy recognition of who I'm shooting, you know, if I'm at school or something like that, or if it's, you know, a Texas themed shoot, I might put hashtag Texas and stuff like that. You know, so captions not so important. Hashtags I still feel important. Engagement tips. Okay, the biggest tip I could say is collaboration, you know. So in Instagram, you have the ability to not only tag people, but to invite them as a collaborator. And that's something that I really do religiously, you know. So if I'm working with a school, I'm going to invite that school's cheer team to be my collaborator on a particular post. all it's doing, they might not have a huge following, but the second that thing is posted and they accept themselves as a collaborator, it is pushing out that video to their core following, which is really my core demographic, so then they are liking it and it's pushing it out. So collaboration is huge. It's probably the biggest thing that you can do to get more engagement, and better traction on your following and so forth, so invite, but be realistic about it. So like when I did that first video that we saw with Marcus High School, I tagged, I hashtagged Sony, but I was so arrogant that I invited them as a collaborator, on that video. But I did, we use the hashtag so that they can notice it, they follow me and then so forth. But I'm not going to invite somebody as a collaborator that it's not an obvious choice. That's not where my hair, I'm not sending my Hail Mary that direction. I'm going to invite people to collaborate that are really key to the process or to that video.
Right. And then it's like a cheat code to reaching their audience as well as yours.
Instantly,
that's smart.
I mentioned the cheer show, the Navarro cheer show, I have a really good relationship with that college, and so we do a lot of work with them still, and we collaborate with each other quite a bit on posts, so every fall I go down and shoot a football game, I do their media day, and when we're doing a post, I invite them as a collaborator, and half the time they choose to accept the collaboration, and that pushes them out to their audience, and so that collaboration is huge.
All right. Audience engagement and community building. I know you touched on this a little, but you want to go ahead with this one?
Yeah. Engagement, as being organic, being real, I'm showing things that I really do. This is what I do. All these smoke pictures, these aren't just little one-offs, we do media days where we're shooting 90 kids with that smoke setup, and so it's organic, it's real, that's why people want to engage with what we're doing, both on the cheer and the photography side, is because it's authentic, and when you're doing these posts, it's got to be authentic. It's not a fake version of yourself. It's got to be something that is perceived as real and relevant. Why are you doing this? And it's much better to promote others than to try to promote yourself. We do a lot of work with companies and stuff. And, right now I actually just wrote a creative brief for a company that we're looking to do a big video series with, and they're going to have some corporate sponsors and stuff. And I'm like adamant in their corporate sponsorship that, that we're putting those products as a placement, not an overt commercial. It'll be better if you see the brand, you see the cup of coffee on the coffee table, but it's not, hey, look at me, I am drinking Dunkin' Donuts today. Looking at pages at work, no one comes to mind better than Red Bull. Go to Red Bull's page and take a look at what they do. Pretty talented people doing interesting things. Yeah, there's Red Bull logos on the planes, on the parachutes, on the bicycle jumps, but there's never someone chugging a Red Bull, and it's not in your face. It's the content is about what the people are doing. It's not about the Red Bull itself. It's a great example of how do you create posts that are engaging and relevant and still build your brand. Because it's just the cool stuff. The brand is secondary, but people will notice the brand. Everyone knows who Red Bull is. They know their content. It's amazing, but it's not a Red Bull commercial.
Right. All the cool people drink Red Bull. So if you want to be cool, you drink Red Bull.
You want to do cool things? Drink Red Bull. But it's subtle. It's not in your face.
Right.
I just watched a cheerleading little docuseries on YouTube, where it was sponsored by a big company, and it's just an infomercial. And it's like, no one's watching it because it's an infomercial. If it's authentic, they watch it.
Right. Okay, so we can do a couple of questions here.
Sure.
Jerry, we could talk for hours. So sorry, guys.
I know.
I love that everybody's sticking on. So do you add smoke in post, or is it all from the photo itself?
Both. So we have some programs that just want the smoke experience, You know, they want the spray, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're happy to do that. You know, like I said, we can set it up in a volume, our lighting setup for that. Literally, I can do a volume. I can do 50, 60 kids in an hour or two. You know, we primarily use the atmosphere aerosol, and it's just for speed and efficiency. But we also have some programs that are more concerned with just getting out the door quickly. And so there we have a really great workflow with a photo where we're actually shooting on a black background and then adding smoke in post-production. And the plates that we use for the smoke are actual real smoke, you know, pictures that we've taken. So they're very authentic in terms of depth of field and, you know, and color and so forth. So we can do it either way. I actually prefer doing it in post. I actually get a better picture in post, but when someone says we want that real smoke experience, we do it all day long without hesitation. And we have a really cool process of being able to do it quickly, where we can get each athlete 3 smoke shots and out and done in 30 to 45 seconds apiece.
Nice. So are you always using the spray, or are you ever using like a fog machine or anything like that?
I have a fog machine, but I just prefer the spray because it's just, I have a little more control over it. Even though it's a little bit more money, we're making plenty of money that I can afford a few extra cans of, you know, $10 spray just for the ease of not having to find an outlet, heat up the smoke and blah, 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 blah. We can just go boom, boom, boom and go with it. And we can even cheat a little bit on that, you know, where if we're in a hurry, we can do almost like a hybrid version of it to where they're getting that real smoke shoot, but we might add a little smoke in post as well.
And then for smoke shoots, do you have like a special, like, do you charge a special amount? Like, is there a certain, you know, time when you do them versus not, or how does that work?
So we typically will do the smoke shoot for our media days and we require 100% participation. So we have a couple different options. So in Texas, for example, they have these booster clubs that have these insane budgets. I have a high school with a high school cheer booster club that literally their annual budget's $250,000 a year, you know, and so they want a smoke shoot and they just write a check. So we do it 2 ways. So we either have everyone prepay $75 and they get all the digital images, but our preferred way, and this is, you know, we will take their money, but only if we have to. Our preference is using PhotoDay and requiring each athlete to do a $30 advance pay deposit.
Beautiful.
So we set up a job. We make sure every person has to do a $30 advance pay, and all they get for that is the ability to participate in the photo shoot, and then they get their $30 back as a credit. But we find our sales per athlete shot, not average order value, but sales per athlete shot are right now. This year they're pushing 100. Last year they were 91. This year we're pushing $100 per athlete shot by using that method versus doing the $75 prepay, get all the digitals. Either way, we're making great money at it, but we do require that participation. And I say 100% participation. I'm no fool, you know. If one kid refuses to pay, I'm not gonna not show up, you know. But the idea is that we have a commitment from the athletes, the parents, the boosters before we come in and do that secondary smoke setup. But we also, when we say media day, and this will be part of the workshop that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but, you know, we're set up in a volume sense where they get that cool smoke experience or LED light experience, but we're also have an extraction station right next to it. So here again, we get the hybrid shoot of, we're doing that traditional extraction workflow where we can build our composite team photos, banners, AI backgrounds, and then they slide right over to do that fun media day shoot, but in a volume setup. You know, you see a lot of these guys doing it online. They're working 5 or 6 athletes. I'm working with 60 to 100, you know, and you know, I remember, you know, last week when we were at Jay's workshop, you know, we we're talking about, you know, working with that singular athlete to do all the smoke and stuff and getting $1,000 to $1,500. And I just like, yeah, that's great, but that sounds like a lot of work. You know, in the same time frame, I could, you know, I can charge 30 or 40 people $100 a piece, you know, and it's actually easier for me to shoot 30 or 40 in a volume setup as it is to shoot one person with that specialized personalized setup.
Right. Okay. Talked a bit about this, the collab feature. That is really, really cool. If people do not already use that, let's see. Using highlights to sell your services. So highlights are the things that are on your Instagram profile, right? That are stories.
Well, what I do, so when I highlight somebody, it might be more that I'm going to refer to a link in my bio or something like that. But it's more about, trying to, if it's cheer season, I'm, high school cheer season, I'm going to pick the top 3 programs that I've worked with and do a lot of, emphasis on those programs so that the smaller programs get to be a part of it. Same as we get into all-star season and things like that. So, just
got it. Let's see. So PhotoDay, you use PhotoDay to sell your photos.
Yes.
So explain how PhotoDay makes it possible to make lots of money with these photos.
Okay, so we love it. Okay, so what I love about PhotoDay is it's very flexible for me. And so I talked about our setup where we were doing the advanced pay. That's powerful. So I'm able to collect, get an investment from each athlete. It doesn't limit their spend though. So so they're able to take that $30 and then leverage it into these $120, $200 orders. And we love that. We love Capture App. Capture App is our life. So we require data. No data, no jury is what we say. So
good rule to live by.
Yeah, it literally is, and it's willingness to say no. So we require. We want the athlete name, we want the squad that they're on, and their parent email. And if I don't have that, I'm not showing up. I'll just say I'm not your guy. Very rare, very seldomly does that ever become a case. People are just afraid to ask. They assume that because they're part of the school, they're not going to get the data. Yeah, the school may not give me the data, but the coach will, or the booster club will. So no data, no jury. But with that data, I'm able to Capture App everybody, and it allows me, even though we sell primarily on public galleries, we set up 2 different jobs, one for the data and one for the sales platform. And with that data, we're able to do, individualized posters, banners, things like that, be able to track who's paid, who hasn't paid their advance pay deposit. Because nice thing is that advance pay is usable. You don't have to do the advance pay in the job that you're selling it with, so it's really, really powerful. Download all is life, so I was telling you a story back in Indy. So 2 years ago when they came out with the progressive downloads, I know that worked for some people. I was sitting there, and I was new to PhotoDay, and I was like, oh, it's coming, this download, it's coming. I'm in Cabo, and the progressive downloads gets announced. And I literally take my phone, and I'm thank God for this fake ficus tree sitting in the corner of the condo, because I take my phone and throw it across the room. Damn it! I was so because I know coming from another platform, how powerful download all is, and it wasn't download all; it was download all light, and so I'm just like, oh.
Well, thanks for not taking tiered downloads for an answer, because everyone should thank Jerry, because now we have download all. Everything's fine.
And download all is, it's so powerful. So since that's come out, we've watched our average order value just soar. It's a digital world right now.
Definitely.
If you're not focusing your sales strategy on digital files, you're doing it wrong. Don't tell me in my area the people want they want a memory mate. It is your best selling item because you've just given someone an excuse to spend $22 on one print. And we don't even offer them. It's not even available. We don't give people an excuse to get out for $22.
Right.
We want them to buy that $129 download all package. And our strategy with it is in the first 5 days, it's $129. And after the 5 days, we switch the price list, send out another email. And that's why the data is key. We work with a direct email in conjunction with your guys' texting. But after that 5-day period, we switch our price list up, and then that download all goes to $229. And we still sell a lot at $229, but what we do is our hook is in that first 5 days, we make it just so appealing, like we have to have it, you know? And that's pretty much all of our sales are $129 download all, $129 download all, 100, you know, it seems to be our sweet spot. When we're doing a little more, we do a little bit of rec type stuff. We lower that price point down to $79 or $99, depending on the sport. But for cheer, you know, we're at $129. So yeah, it's download all is great.
And it's just easy. I think it's that one button, you know, people see it. Yeah. They don't have to, takes out the guesswork, just get it off.
Yeah. It just is no, there is no decision. You know, because that's the thing, decision paralysis, you know, and that was the challenge. The concept of the progressive downloads was great, but it's decisions. We want to remove as many barriers as possible from the purchase process. And here they all are. I push one button, I get them. I get to print as many of them as I want. I get to share them with you know, on Facebook, and life is good. Move on.
Yes. I think that's huge. Let's see, questions wise, you wonder what you're charging for download all. And I think as far as the process to get into schools and stuff, that you said was mostly just driven by social media, all of the, let's see. Do you, and we're jumping away from this topic, but do you monetize your Instagram or TikTok content, or
in the way that they're talking about? Intentionally, no. So I could, you know, let's take my Instagram. I'm probably walking away from $10,000 to $15,000 a year in money from Instagram. I make a lot more than that as a result of getting more jobs. So my concern with doing a direct monetization with Instagram or TikTok is that they're not going to they're not going to consider my feed as organic as they do right now. And it may not get pushed out to as many people. And I'm not willing to risk the reward I get from more work for the sake of a few $100s for a video here and there. You know, so I've made an intentional choice not to. I get hit up, you know, my inbox right now, I could show you my inbox, and there's no less than, you know, 7 to 10 per day companies wanting me to do a collaboration or a promotion for $200 and a free this or a free that. And I just consistently decline because I want to keep my feed as organic as possible. The only time I'm ever putting a quote unquote ad is if we're doing something like this, or, you know, I have a good client that invites me to collaborate, you know, and I want to help push out their thing. Otherwise, it just doesn't look like an ad, you know, and that's why it works.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And then on the topic of PhotoDay, and I know we talked about this recently, expiring your PhotoDay galleries. So are you expiring them? How long after
I love this.
Are you expiring them?
Okay, so the real truth, we don't expire anything. I'm going to sell that forever. Now, in terms of what the customer sees, is we're going to expire them 4 to 5 weeks from the time that we started. You know, because what we see is, you know, we put it forward, we get our nice big initial surge in that 5-day period, you know, before we switch the price list out on the download all. And then they just kind of sit and trickles in. Then the first expiration date comes, and we, the texts go out, the emails go out, these are expire. We see a big surge at the end of that. And then we will actually turn off the gallery. And then at the end of the year, we put together a end of the year sale. And we reach out to our friends Stevie and Lisa and say, hey, we want some special this and that text and stuff like that. We're going to have a big year-end sale. Well, that big year-end sale covered a ton of expenses when we don't have a lot of work going on in May. You know, it basically gives us an extra month's worth of revenue. So we have a big year-end sale. Now, at the end of that, we've turned off all the traditional marketing, and we're just at, you know, we replaced the price list to an a la carte. And then if somebody sends me an email a week after the year-end sale or a month and saying, hey, I want to order from this, we're still going to take their money because it's easy with PhotoDay. You just give them the link. Why would I say no? Why would I say no? Oh, I'm going to charge you. I mean, you're getting back to the damn, photographer pages. I'm not doing that. They don't order, they don't get it, or they're going to pay, $300. My time's worth blah 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 blah.
If you don't do it, somebody else will.
Make it easy for me to take your clients, please. So I have somebody that answers my emails. Erica is my girl, and she answers my emails, and it takes her about 15 seconds to send a link to somebody to get their $72. Why wouldn't I?
So for the end of the year sale, are you doing like a discount? Like, is there a specific discount you do?
Yeah, we do. We do, and there's a big argument with it. So we never take it lower than what our lowest price would be. So like at our end of the year sale, our download all went to 129 off of the 229. And we sold a whole bunch of those. But we don't want to discount it so much that the people that who've purchased with us during the season feel slighted.
I'm big on that.
But we're also at the end of the year, these images have value to exactly the client. That's it. This is not great art that we're doing. There's no real value to these pictures. They're valuable to one person, and that is the parent, and that's it.
Right.
And so we want to make it low enough to where they can have a chance to still buy that if they haven't bought it at the end of the year. And we've really never gotten any blowback from people that have bought previously. That, you've lowered the price, because people want them, they don't want to wait a year to get it. Most of the people that are buying it this year-end sale are people that have just honestly forgot to make the purchase.
Right. It was a bad time. Okay.
Yeah. So why not take tens of thousands of dollars from them?
Totally. Yeah. Okay. So, and I feel like, all right, this question is, do you give the school or teams the images that you take, or just sell them to parents? Yeah.
Yes. No. So what we do is, because it gets back to the collaboration. People want to be able to post on their own social media and so forth. So when we work with the booster clubs and everyone's paid the $75, they get all the images. Booster club gets all the images. The coach gets all the images. Why not? I've already sold them all. We're still trying to sell some prints. We're selling prints after that fact, and we still sell, a few $1,000s worth of prints on every job. But for the most part, they get them all. Now, and when it comes to the $30 advance pay, we're giving them all the images that have been purchased. So they're getting at least the core amount of images, so that they can still do birthday posts and things like that. But here again, if a person's already done a download all, why would I not give the coach or the program those images to work with it? We did the same with our all-stars as well. We put together an owner's gallery for them so that they have a core group of images that they can use to create their social media posts and be able to promote their program. And in turn, they're tagging me on all these posts.
Right. That keeps you front and center.
Where again, it's not art that we're selling. These have value to the parents, to the programs. That's it.
Right. You're right. Okay. Let's see. So metrics and why they matter. And then we'll talk about the workshop, which we're getting some questions about. So you use the tools in the social media to track, your engagement?
Not as scientifically as some people, but I definitely, when I'm posting, I'm literally when I make a post, I am making sure I'm available online for the first 10 to 15 minutes that's posted. If someone puts a comment on a post, I'm immediately replying, not just with an emoji, but with 5 to 7 words of a response, because I'm trying to promote that engagement. Okay. And then I'm probably not doing much with it until 6 hours or so after that. And I'll take a look at it, and it's more out of just curiosity. I'll know if I've hit 15 to 20,000 views in the first 6 hours, that it's on its way to doing, at least 100,000, which is what we really want to see. Not that everything gets 100,000, but as long as it's hitting 100,000, I know I've done something right. If it stalls at 25 to 30,000, I'm going to take a look and figure out why. And my most usual reason why is my hook isn't strong enough. I didn't have a strong enough opening scene, is what it really comes down to. So I do look at it. you know,
Mhm.
but
more of those details.
Yeah, you know, and then I will monitor those comments as well. If I get somebody that's liking it that or commenting on it, and I can make a relevant comment back. I'll do that. If I see somebody that's verified, semi-famous and stuff that
Mhm.
likes it, you know, or comments on it, I'm gonna give that some special attention.
Right.
You know, like when Queen Latifah commented on that one video, actually, you know, I screenshotted her like and put it on a story, and it just kept driving.
Yes.
The engagement.
That's a huge deal. Huge deal.
Yeah.
Super cool. All right. Action plan and final thoughts.
All right. Well, I like this. Audit your grid. Okay. So make sure that you're not looking like I say, you know, a strip mall billboard. You know, make sure that your social media doesn't look like my first 6 posts right now. Okay. We're going to get that cleaned up. But scroll down just a little bit.
Don't look at it right now.
Scroll down a few lines and then you'll take a look at it. And honestly, that's a really good way of doing it. Scroll down, you know, a few lines and then take a look at you can typically, depending on the device you're on, anywhere from 9 to 12 posts you can visually and take a look at it. Does it look clean? Does it look engaging? Does it look something like you want to look at, you know, because you might have a viral video out, but what that viral video is going to do is hopefully get someone to follow you or share that video. I mean, that's the first thing that you really want. But for them to follow or you, they're typically going to go to your profile and then take a look of what your grid looks like. And you want them to then go on and click more and more and more. You know, when we had that Marcus video, you know, go off for 4 or 5 million views, I had several other things that I had posted in the last 6 months that, you know, got 300-400% more likes than they had as people were scrolling through my feed and looking at other things. So that's 3 times a week, I think, is a really good realistic goal for people to do, especially when you're trying to build your audience. You know, some people right now are saying 3 to 5 times a day. That's a lot of editing, you know, but your story, and we didn't even talk about the story on Instagram, especially. I always make sure that there is something going on in my story 24/7. So even when I'm taking a break from posting on my main feed, it could be just something as simple as like last night, I was over playing at the World Series of Poker and I just took a picture of the backdrop. You know, I am playing poker. I took a picture of the sphere, you know, that we could see outside my hotel room, you know, just so there's something there. If somebody is kind enough to post and tag me in a picture, I'm going to at least repost it on my story. You know, I want something on my story 24/7.
It shows that you're human and you're doing things like
it's just and it's, you know, and shows some gratitude. You know, I'm not going to always accept a collaboration, but if somebody invites me to collaborate something, I'm at a minimum going to give them the courtesy of posting it on my story. Engaging with the local accounts, that's great. That's huge. You know, have a target, you know, have some goals, you know, have your immediate goal of, you know, is there a client that I really want? Engage on, not overtly, don't just sit there and brown nose the whole thing, but like their posts, you know, make a relevant comment on somebody that you might want to do business with, you know, and then have bigger goals. You know, is it a dream client that you want to work with, or is there Sony that you want to recognize you and collaborate with, you know? So engaging with them will push your feeds to their, you know, to their feed. And, you know, it gives you that opportunity to work with some bigger clients.
Very cool. So, okay, one more question, and I feel like you answered it, but just to sum it up, the difference between grid posts, reels, and stories, like what's your opinion?
So your reels really need to be your primary strategy. They really just need, even if you're taking still photos and editing them into a video slideshow format, your reels will get more view than any grid post that you could do. If you
and they're sent to people whether or not they follow you, reels.
Yeah. So we talked about insights. So like you check on the insights. If I have something that's hitting 5 million views, you know, only 2 or 3% of those views are going to be my followers. You know, the other 97 are other followers, you know, and so you have a bigger opportunity for your stuff to get out to other people, because yeah, it's great to have followers, you know, but those people already know who I am. They got my phone number. They know how to get a hold of me. I want to push my stuff out to new people, new clients, new opportunities, and reels are going to give you the best, you know, way of doing that. The stories are a better way to stay in touch with your existing audience, you know, and so those stories don't get pushed out as far as reels might, you know. So that's where my story, I just, you know, stay in hey, I'm in Vegas, you know. Hey, ooh, Jerry's Instagram looks like it's not quite as cool as it looks on Instagram, but we want to make it look cool, you know. So
Totally.
you know,
so that's how social media works.
Yeah. So, you know, so the stories are really great. Posts, it's lazy. And I'm not, I do post if I do a post, it is, you know, I'm going to at least put 3 to 5 single images in what would be a carousel, you know, so at least people are seeing a little something there. I'll just do that. You know, if I'm, you know, trying to make a post for a client's sake, or I'm just running and gunning and I don't have time to edit, or I don't have access to some new content that I want to work with, I'll just throw some posts, and I'll throw a post up. I will look at my posts, gonna get 90% less engagement than my reels.
Right. So, and that's kind of like your portfolio. I feel like that was a good way to put it. Like once people come back and look, and also cool that you have it on your website. That kind of takes care of updating what's on there. So.
And one last thing real quick and when you do those reels is you have the opportunity to create your thumbnail. That's really, really important. You know, so when you're in the reel process at the end, you have the option to either take a portion of that video or to even use a still photo as the what is going to be on your profile grid. And so it's really important getting back to portfolio. You're never seeing the back of my head on the portfolio grid. It's always the final shot.
So even in the behind the scenes, you choose the actual photo as the
right, because that's my portfolio. Yeah, as a thumbnail, because that is what shows up when people go to your page, and they don't want to see the back of my head. They want to see the girl jumping up in the air.
Right. Are you ever putting like text or anything like that on the thumbnails, or you just put the picture?
I played with that a little bit last year. I had one that popped off doing that, but it's just extra work. That's really not generating a lot of results. Yeah.
Okay. Jerry, thank you so much. Thanks for staying on. We went an hour and 30 minutes. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us. I could do another hour, honestly. That was extremely informative and a lot of good information there. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is PhotoDay's cost. If you guys do not already use PhotoDay, these are the costs, but we only get paid when you get paid. So we are completely committed to y'all's success. If you're just getting started, come to our bubble chat and we will help you. If you're already started and you have questions for us, come to our bubble chat and schedule a call. We have an amazing team, and we have a ton of cool tools and features that come with the cost. So yeah.
And part of our workshop, we'll be setting up our job from beginning to end in PhotoDay, showing our price list, you know, how we integrate the capture app and so forth. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Very, very cool. Yeah, you guys, and if you're not selling download all, sell it, because it'll make you some more money. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's it. I think we covered everything, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.
All right. Bye.
Gary, peace out.